Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Story Darlings podcast. I'm Sandra.
And I'm Tera.
What are we talking about today, Tera?
We are talking about A Court of Frost and Starlight. And I'm just going to point out that this is such a feel-good, book in all senses. And that's kind of a spoiler, but we're about to get into it anyway. But there are no sad parts in this book. And I needed that. I needed a boost.
I love how this book, it's so short, right? Because it's meant as a prequel book to bridge the Feyre novels in the beginning to the rest of the series, whatever those may be. But it did such a good job at fleshing characters out, the side characters a little bit. We got a little bit more about Cass and Azriel and more. And there's enough there to kind of spur you on to reading the series. But if you're just tuning into this, know that Tera and I are hosting read-alongs for all of Sarah J Maas's book series. So last season was the entire Throne of Glass series. We did 2 episodes per book. So if you haven't read that series, definitely pick them up and then give us a listen. And then now we're hosting a read-along for A Court of Thorns and Roses, fondly known as ACOFAS. And then next up will be Crescent City in late December, January, somewhere in there as we prepare for Crescent City Book 3, House of Flame and Shadow to come out. So know that there's going to be spoilers, but thanks for tuning in. You want to talk about what's going on with this book?
Yeah, so we left off right as the war ended. There were horrible losses to the Illyrian band as well as to Feyre because her dad just died, and Nesta and Elaine too because they had to see that happen, but also come to grips with what they did after, which is to kill Hybern. And so we come into this book and we are coming into a holiday, which I'm with Sandra on this. Sandra's usually the holiday freak, but this holiday is great. It reminds me of Christmas, and I bet that is what she is wanting because it is the Winter Solstice. So it is happening in the winter time. And it just reminds me a lot of Christmas, being together with your family and, having happy moments and celebrating. And so we come up to the solstice prep and everybody is buying presents for everybody. And Feyre, being the girl born into a poor world and trying to help others, is feeling bad about buying these presents because it's not necessarily needed. And so she is oh, well, that's a lot of money and I could be helping over here. And she is helping a lot with volunteering. And people are no, go home. You've done enough. Go home. And she just feels like she isn't doing enough for everybody that was harmed during the war.
It was strange to me reading this book I think this is actually the second time I've read this book, but it felt in a way very parallel to the very beginning of A Court of Mist and Fury, because in that book, Feyre was kind of just stumbling around Spring Court after the events of Under the Mountain, and with, Claire Better's death and the 2 Fae that she killed. And so she feels very useless and depressed. It's the winter solstice then too, her birthday, and she doesn't even tell anyone and just goes through the motions. And now here we are a year later after all of this stuff happens. And it feels much longer than a year with everything that's transpired, right? But reading this the second go around, Frost and Starlight, Feyre kind of had that same thing about her because everyone's no, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to do anything. So she's basically walking around Velaris trying to find a purpose, and help out. And Feysand is off doing his stuff post-war. And so she wants to find her thing.
Well, and you see the difference between the 2 worlds there too, or her 2 courts that she was in after shit went down and she's feeling useless. Because Rhys is oh yeah, do what you want. It doesn't matter what they say. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do. And Tamlin was not there for her. He was just,
Lock her in the house.
But Rhys is no, do whatever you want. You are in charge of you. So if you want to go help, you go help. Doesn't matter what they say. So I don't know. I like Rhys in his helping her cope with
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. And then he's also like, don't think I forgot your birthday. Like, I know.
Oh.
And she's like, I don't need anything. And he's like, oh, well.
Yeah, the whole gift giving and all of this stuff, that part really resonated with me because I'm always like, no, don't give me a present. Don't draw attention to me on my birthday. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. I'm like, yes, I'm with you, Feyre.
Well, I'm going to draw attention because she did the same thing with her wedding and she keeps flashing her little ring over here. But Sandra got married, so she has a celebration that she is not celebrating. But everybody congratulate her. I'm going to draw attention to it.
Yes. So Friday 13th, we did our little elopement. And so we're thinking about it retrospect because, okay, spoilers right now. You think of Sarah J Maas' Throne of Glass series with Aelin and Rowan, it was like a very off-page secret wedding thing. And then ACOTAR was kind of the same thing with Feysand and Feyre. And I was like, you know what? I did like the whole elopement thing, which is always what I had in my mind just because like I don't want to deal with crowds. It's like I love my friends and family, most of the time family, but no, this is like a private thing. Yeah. Thank you, Tera. I love you.
I love you too. But yes, Sandra did do the off-page got married, fitting right in with our heroines and heroes in this book. But I guess the first kind of like hurdle that we see in this as they're preparing for the holiday is Cassian and Rhys and Azriel going to the Illyrian camps because they're all slightly peeved. And they think that Rhys and Cassian sent the Illyrians to the front lines as kind of punishment for the way that they were treated as like bastards and less than worthy Illyrians. And so there is some resentment building in the camps because of this. And so we do see a common thread of them trying to figure out where that resentment is coming from and like how many people are part of this. And Cassian is feeling down because he knows that there's a cost to war, but he also like takes that upon himself that there was a cost to the war of Illyrians. And so as their commander, he is like remembering all that was lost. And then also Cassian, I think, is just like a big brute, but like a heart of gold. And it's so cute because he doesn't hold it against them how he treated him, but he still feels less than, I think, in some instances. So we do that, and then we see that they are not letting the women practice right now because the women have to go and plan the holiday, which is much like Christmas sometimes, and like the men can also buy presents, guys, and cook. Like, it is possible. And that is basically what Rhys says. Like, okay, if you're not going to let them, then the men don't get to either. They need to be home planning the holiday too. And I'm like, you go, you tell them. Like,
yes. He's on our side.
Yes.
Yeah, you believe in this dissent that's being sown, or it's a plausible fact, I should say, because if you remember from War and Ruin, the Illyrian faction that was in the war, they suffered the heaviest losses. Nesta, screaming out to Cassian to save his life when everybody else was just like vaporized on the battlefield, essentially, by Hybern. And so you have a lot of the Illyrian armies that sided with Hybern as well. And so Azriel and Cassian are tasked with pinpointing who is the main person that is stirring the pot so that Feysand can deal with them. And I don't think it's actually resolved in this book, but like they have a name, right? It's like Callan or someone. But we also meet another Illyrian woman or female character, the shop owner, Emery. And so we get kind of good vibes off of her too, because she's just like, oh yeah, my father Proteus, like he died in the war, in the last war. So the shop's mine.
I didn't get the sense that she really gave a shit that he died, but you also see that she has been clipped. Her father has like allowed her wings to be clipped. So I don't know that I would care too much if my dad like did that, like she's like, oh no, yeah. I'm just a wealthy woman now. Like, leave me alone.
Yes. I love how Cassian was drawn to her because he kept thinking about his mom and how she suffered the same kind of thing and was just completely disrespected, probably physically too. You get the sense that, and how her body was just discarded. And they told Cassian about what they did to her after. And so she pretty much has like, you know, an unmarked grave that he will go and visit. So I'm sure he, like, looking at Emery, thought a lot about his mom. So I loved how those layers were peeled back with Cassian.
Well, and you also see Cassian being like the heart of gold in that scene, because he is there to buy like boots and coats and winter supplies because there's a winter storm coming in for all of the Illyrians that can't afford it. So he basically goes to the shop because everywhere else is sold out and nobody wants to buy from the woman shop owner because it should have went to the males, you know, in their minds. And so he goes in and he buys all the stuff and he's like, yeah, just go and give it away, like, to whoever needs it. And he paid her extra for that. And it was just so cute. I'm like, oh, because like what we've seen of him so far is like that battle scene where it's like, oh, you're a badass.
The god of war.
Yes. And then he comes and he's like, I'll buy some jackets for the little kids. And you're like, oh, my ovaries. No.
My ovaries. Yeah, they're screaming out for children. No. Even that scene with Feyre when he shows up at the house and just dumps a bunch of like garland and tree stuff, you know, on the ground. She's like, what is that? That's probably one of my favorite scenes in this book is when Feyre and Cassian decorate. I hate decorating for the holidays, which is a shocker because I love talking about the holidays in books. But
they drunk decorate. They
drunk decorate.
Decorate.
And Az comes to the townhouse and he's like, guys, come on. So he's basically following them around, trying to like fix it after them. And it's just the cutest scene ever. And it's like, you know, one after another of the inner circle keeps arriving and just making snipey comments about it. It's so funny.
I also like that they described Feyre getting drunk that night. And it's like one bottle of wine and she's out for the count. And I'm sorry, Sandra, but like that just made me think of you and getting drunk in college. And you're like one bottle of wine and you're like, I'm done.
Yeah. Let's lay on the sidewalk. It's nice and warm. Tera and me.
Yes. Oh. I was like, oh, that sounds like something me and Sandra would do. Try and decorate drunk and it would look horrible, but we would be having fun. And then the next day we'd be like, what the fuck did we do?
Yes. We don't get a lot about Azriel. Like the most that we get is like talk about his shadows, right? Because they're like, his shadows aren't Illyrian born. It's something else. And so there's like a little bit of mystery that's being, you know, breadcrumbs being sprinkled in about Azriel's origins because his parent, you know, is very secretive, I guess, very mysterious. And then another thing I liked about this book is not only do we get Feyre's POV and Rhysand's POV, we did get that Cassian POV and I think Morgan as well, right?
We do get a more.
What did you think of Morgan's scene where she says she's like going to Winter Court and she goes to the Athelwood estate that belongs to her and no one knows about it? And so she's like riding the horse Elia through the snow.
So yes, Morgan's scene, it's like a winter wonderland for her. It's like a peaceful place. And we haven't seen Moor be peaceful before, which is nice. And even though there's like this weird creature like that she senses is there and she senses like she shouldn't go over to it, like I'm wondering who that is. I have two guesses. One, it could be Nesta, like because there's something going on with Nesta, right? I think she could probably give off the vibe that like don't mess with me, right? Or because we've heard about Moor's like girlfriend from a long time ago. I'm wondering if maybe it could be Moor's girlfriend checking up on her. Those are my two guesses.
Those are interesting theories. Yep. I will say there's definitely something going on with Nesta, right? Another thing is like from War and Ruin, you had Striga who died and the Bone Carver who died, and then the terror shadow thing. disappeared, right? That nightmare thing. So I'm trying to remember where the last battle was, because I kind of feel like if it was in Night Court area, it borders along like Winter Court, doesn't it? Like it's
Yeah.
right in there.
Yeah,
So I
it
don't
could
know.
be him.
I don't know. I feel like my first read through, I was like, is it that? Because she describes the presence as familiar but foreign. So I'm like, okay, that thing was from a different world. And then the shadows, like I know that shadows was a part of it, but I didn't know. And then I'm like, well, Azrael's shadows, I don't know. It just makes your imagination just start popping off. You're like, what is this?
We don't know who Azrael's dad, like, I mean, we don't know his, like, where he gets his shadows, right? And so it could be somebody related to Azrael. So it's familiar because it, like, touches on Azrael's powers. But then it's foreign because she's never actually met them.
You made the comment in the last, like a previous episode, that you thought Azrael was a little voyeur kind of thing, like just lingering and watching things that he cares about. So it could be like him too. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. I think
Kinda
he's more
strange.
a voyeur with sex, though. Like,
you think so?
not necessarily just like, you know, where are you going? Like, stalk her.
Now we've painted him as a total creep.
Yeah, I don't think he's a creep. Well, I mean, kind of, but in a kinky way.
Freak show.
Yes. Oh, okay. So another scene that got me is, and we love these scenes of women getting their periods, right? We had a scene with Aelin in The Throne of Glass, and it's hilarious. But we have a scene in this book of Feyre getting her monthly cycles, and like it sounds like it was horrible because it's not monthly for Faye, it is like twice yearly. And so like apparently you've just saved up all of those monthly like gers and shoved them all in one, and she is having not a great time. And it was so cute how Reese is like, oh, I'll help you, and like being so caring. And she's like, go away.
I love how Sarah J Maas writes about that stuff. It's just not represented a lot in books in general.
But it got me because he's like changing out her like bleeding rags, and she's like so embarrassed, and he's like, it's blood. It's just like
it's
any
just
other blood. And I'm like, I would be with her like, no, don't you. But it was just, he's like, it's fine.
I'm with you there. He really cares. That's why he's the perfect boy.
And then she's like, I gotta tell my sisters about this shit. Because they're coming up on 6 months of being Faye. So she's like, oh, crap. But I'm wondering why she didn't have it before. Because she's been Faye for a little while, right?
Yeah, 1 year. I don't know. Maybe it took a while, you know? I don't want to liken this to being pregnant, but like after you're pregnant and have a baby, it's like a really long time before you have your first period. Maybe it's something like that with the transition from, you know, human to Fae. But yeah, the thought of debilitating cramps and just everything raised to the umpteenth exponent does not sound up my alley. No. But speaking of her sisters, how's Miss Elaine doing? What's she been up to these days?
Well, so she's made friends with the two like little like shadow people that were there to help Feyre the whole time too. And so she has been baking and cooking and gardening. And so she is in her own little like heaven with the hobbies. She is still missing Grayson, and she still doesn't want Lucian around, but otherwise she is having a good time. She is doing much better. Nesta has moved out and is being very bitchy to even Elaine, which threw me because I was like, wait a minute. Like Elaine was like your source of like purpose in the world. And now you're even being mean to her. And so there's something going on with Nesta.
Yes.
And then Elaine and Azrael are so cute.
Aren't they cute? Oh my God. I can't, like, every time they have a little moment shared on page, I'm just like, this is the cutest thing ever. Like, I want to see them together. They are so adorable. It's just, Elaine is so pure, you know, and she's like a flower, and she's slowly blossoming and opening up, and she can be very witty and snarky, you know? I mean, we'll get more about some of those moments later, like solstice stuff. But I mean, she is sharp. She's just one of the interesting characters you see.
Yes. You meet a couple more interesting characters as Feyre is going around town buying her presents. She meets a shop owner, and she has lost her husband in the war, and she is a weaver. And so she is doing the weaving because it's filling the void for her. It's like giving her an outlet for her pain. And I think that that helps Feyre realize that she can use her art as that, and it's not a waste, because Feyre, I think, is still hooked into her old life and her life with Tamlin, that if I don't need it, I don't need it. And if it's not like a physical need, and she doesn't understand that sometimes you can, fulfill your psychological needs and it's just as important as your physical needs. And so she is like kind of fighting herself a little bit, I think, in saying, no, it's okay for me to like do things just to do things and not because I absolutely have to have them, And so she is becoming more and more open to continuing her art. And just because people are suffering doesn't mean she has to like do without everything. It's nice to see her open up that way.
Yeah. I think Feyre's whole issue is she's having a hard time turning that survival switch off and being like, oh, life is about the leisurely as well. Like I can enjoy the frivolous things, right? The artistic, creative pursuits, which those were things that she only could do, if they had a little bit of extra money, to get paint, then she could do that. But if it wasn't a necessity, then no, it was completely out of the question. And so Feyre spends a lot of time just kind of walking the streets of Velaris because everyone is rebuilding, and she comes across that old art studio, I think that was owned by someone named Polina, that's no longer there. So she does end up getting that, right? You want to talk about what she does with that studio?
Yeah, so she sets up a class, or basically a school, because there's more than one class for kids who are having a hard time adjusting to after the war or expressing their emotions. And she's like, painting and art helps me express the feelings that I can't get out otherwise. But anyway, she sets it up with the friend, whatever her name might be. And so they're teaching classes and to these little kids, and they kind of just put like a little bit of a feeler out to say, hey, we're going to do this. If you know of somebody that could, benefit, please bring them. And a lot of people showed up, and the parents were like, how much is it? And things. And they're like, it's free. Like, if they need it, they need it. It will be free for them. Art supplies and everything. And it makes me just want to do, like, I'm not artistic, but like, it makes me want to set up something like that for like people to express themselves.
Yeah. Feyre spends so much of this book just like thinking about the obscene amounts of money that her and Feysand have, and how there are still some parts of Velaris, as picturesque as it is, that are slummy. So like Nesta made a choice to live in an apartment across town in the slums. And so there are a lot of areas of the city that don't have that kind of privilege. So I like that Feysand and Feyre are thinking in terms of what they can do to give back to the community, to, in addition to helping them rebuild.
Well, and Rhys already was doing that because he put down a list of the places that he donates money to for Solstice. And she got to add whoever she wanted to the list too, for them to donate for whatever. And so it's really cute that like that is something that was important to him even before he met her, and they get to continue it together. Like they're on the same page. It's not like one wants to be charitable and the other's like, okay, if I must.
We also get a glimpse into Amren readjusting to life in her just standard high fae body. I texted Tera about this because I was like reading last night, but I was just something to the effect of like, I love how every time Amren is mentioned, there's like some kind of jab to her petiteness, just how small she is, like a child.
I think that that's because she has such a big personality. Like it is such a different, like it's a juxtaposition of like she's tiny person, but like got this personality of probably Bryaxis, you know, and it's just all crammed into that tiny little body.
And she's got a boyfriend, summer court boyfriend.
I like how you say that. She's got a boyfriend, a man friend.
Mm-hmm. She reminded me in this book because it's the holiday season. Everyone's gift shopping and exchanging presents. She's like a troll, right? Just like guarding her little treasures and stuff because everyone is like just showering her in jewels and all of these fancy, expensive items and stuff. And she's just loving it. So cute.
Yes. Yes. Did she get anybody presents though? I could have swore I read one for like but I
remember more giving them, Cass. I don't remember Amryn though. It was like everyone was giving Amryn presents. She did learn how to use a toilet, or was like adjusting to like, because she's used to drinking blood, and so now she's having to be like, what the hell? You guys have to go to the bathroom so often. What is this?
That dinner was hilarious. And I was looking at my notes and I'm like, dinner, LOL. I'm like, that's helpful, Tara. That's helpful. What happened at the dinner? But that is what happened. So she is complaining that now that she has to eat regular food, there are some unfortunate side effects, is I think how she phrased it. And she's like, I've got to know where the bathroom is everywhere I go. And then she's like, I should have made myself a man because at least you can pee wherever you want to without leaking. and Elaine, being the like just precious little thing that she is, like gets sidetracked and she's like, you could have done that? You could have made yourself whatever you wanted? And Amryn's like, yes, but it won't work for you. And it was just hilarious because like she was like complaining that she has to sit on the toilet, and Kaz and everyone else is like, have you not figured out how to sit on a toilet?
It just seems like such an animalistic thing now for her to have to do.
And she gets kind of mad after that. She's like, yes, I have. She's
very
like,
defensive.
I just don't like it. I'm like, same. Like, it would be much better if we could just like pee standing up. Sitting on toilets, especially in like public places, is just gross.
Oh my God.
And so like I'm with Amryn, like why were we not like built with some sort of like ability to pee, not sitting down? But anyway, it's another subject.
Yeah, to use Tara's phrasing with Amryn, it's like her pride has been knocked down a few pegs with just being a normal Fae now.
Yes.
So Feyre, when she's talking to Elaine about Nesta, and Elaine, because you mentioned earlier in this episode, Elaine and Nesta always had, the best relationship of the three of them, like that little pairing. And now Elaine is just like, well, Nesta said she doesn't want anything to do with coming over or doing anything. And Feyre's just like, well, that's strange. Like, Feyre being Feyre, I'm going to go try and fix this and impose my will. That is one thing I will say about rereading this book, Tara, is this book, more than any of the others, Feyre actually started grating on me, like annoying me a little bit, because she was constantly like, for example, with Elaine, oh, Lucian's a good male, give him a chance, like being very forceful, like give Elaine some space to breathe, damn. And then like just showing up, like tracking Nesta down at the tavern, the seedy tavern, where she's at a table full of handsome hot males and she's going to take one home, and she's just like, playing cards or whatever. And Feyre just shows up, like, oh, you're going to do this and that, and a father would want you to do this. And she's just like, Nesta's not having it at all.
Yeah.
Like, how dare you bring up, that.
Well, and Nesta didn't have a great relationship with their father, so I'm not sure why Feyre thought that, like, oh, he would want you to do this. Like, to me, that would be like, well, fuck off. I don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see your point there, but I also can see Feyre's a little bit, because like she feels responsible for why her sisters are in the predicament that they are. And I feel like she's just trying to like help them get over that. But she is doing it in the way that Tamlin kind of did it to her without giving them a choice. And that is the part that like I can see why she wants to do it. And because like I feel like I would also just like want to help people get better. Like I just want to help you. I just want to help you. But at the same point, she is doing it without like taking into account what they want and how they are growing and where they are. Like she's not meeting them where they are. She's meeting them where she wants them to be.
Yes.
Unlike what Rhys did for her, which is met her where she was and like, hey, if you want to, you want to. If you don't, you don't. Let's do that. She is trying to force it on them. So yeah, I can see your point, but I also like, I think she's doing it with goodness in her heart and not like Tamlin, I think, was doing it because he wanted something out of it. I think she is doing it because she really wants them to get better and she doesn't want to feel like they're hating what their life is because she feels responsible for that. So
maybe this is like a personal quirk of mine, but it's like you look at Feyre's life and she has like the perfect husband and the perfect inner circle and she has all this happiness and joy all around her, blah, blah, blah. And Nesta just has to feel like Nesta's not ready to be in all of that, you know? And I've felt like many times in my life that people have tried to pull me into that big kind of gathering, and I just want nothing to do with it. Like, that's not me. Yeah.
It's the quintessential depression where people expect you to smile through it and you're just not there. And she does. She comes to Solstice and she kind of smiles through it. But it's just, you can tell, like, it's not real for her. And yeah, it's just like a depression. She's in a depression and she's not ready for the breakthrough of it.
You brought up Tamlin. We have a scene with Feysand going to visit Tamlin at Spring Court because politically there's a lot at stake because Tamlin hasn't been securing his borders, and there's just a lot of movement, especially with the Autumn Court heiress trying to press for more territory and stuff, and they're right next to Spring Court. So Feysand goes to visit Tamlin to kind of just see how things are going, and it is not good. It's probably one of the most bleak kind of scenes in the book.
You had a moment where Feyre got on your nerves. And this scene was a moment where Rhys got on mine because I'm like, dude, like kick him while he's down. Like, I get it, but also, damn, like maybe just go away and like leave him alone. But yeah, they're like, it is very bleak in the Spring Court. Tamlin doesn't have friends. He doesn't have his kingdom, basically. They all left him. And so he's here in this like palace or castle or whatever you want to call it, and he has broken furniture in most of his rooms. It's like destroyed except for one. So he leads Rhys to that one room, and Rhys is basically like, yeah, I've got the girl, and like straighten up or you know you'll lose more than just your kingdom. And I'm just like, okay, leave him alone. Like he gets it that he has nobody.
He's like, I've got the girl, I've got all the sentries and guards. Like, do you need me to loan you some so that you can secure your borders? And Tamlin's just like,
fuck off.
Yeah, fuck off. But like, this was kind of a growth moment for Tamlin because past Tamlin would have been rearing for a fight, right? Like he would have done something physical back, and he restrains himself and just tells him to get out.
I just had a thought. Like, it seems like Tamlin's in a depression too, right? He's not ready to move on. He needs his like time to wallow. Nesta and Tamlin together.
Oh,
not
God.
like as like just like a bounce off. Like sometimes you just need to wallow with other people, right? And they're both in the same boat right now.
Misery loves company. Yeah.
Yes.
But like, oh, yes, I'm with you. Feysand pissed me off so much. He was just peacocking so hardcore when unnecessarily. And he walks away from that scene. Like, he makes the comment, like, internal dialogue that Tamlin is waiting for someone to just show up in the night and slit his throat. You know, he's seriously not doing anything. He's just existing. There was one scene where he goes in there and it's like he's embraced just the beast, the animal. You know, he's let go of the human side. There's like a dead elk on the dining table, like not even cooked or anything.
Well, and that's after Lucian comes back, and Lucian like basically tells him, you might need Tamlin in the future. Like, oh no, he tells Feyre.
Yeah, let's talk about that scene.
Rhys did this, and like he kicked him while he was down, and that's ridiculous. And you might end up needing Tamlin. So, like, chill, basically. Like, he gets it. He gets that you don't love him. He gets that, you know, he lost you. Like, stop, like, just jabbing it. And I'm with Lucian.
Yeah, you've always loved Lucian because Lucian lays it bare for Feyre. He tells her how it is in this scene. And I was just like, go Lucian, because he was like, it wasn't just Tamlin, right? He was like, you screwed me over too. I am a part of the band of exiles now with Jurian and the Queen Vassa because of the actions and decisions that you did to tear the Spring Court to the ground. Like, because you acted that way, you impacted me too. Not just Tamlin, but you brought me into this too. So he is very angry with Feyre and resentful about it. And he is honest with her.
And to a certain degree, I can see why he was included, because he was showing his loyalty to Tamlin, and he saw the bad things Tamlin was doing to Feyre, but he didn't call him on it, right? And so he does own a certain sense of responsibility for his own actions in that, right? And Tamlin does have a responsibility for his actions and how he treated Feyre. But like at this point, I think it's gone too far. Like, I think he's paid for his mistakes. I think he is understanding. I don't think he meant them as evilly as he could have, you know? Like, I don't think he meant them. I think he was just scared. He's lost everybody in his life that he's cared about. So, like, I think his, like, defense mechanism there is to, well, I can't lose it if I don't let it out.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think that is his.
There was that final meeting between Feysand and Tamlin when Tamlin asked Feysand, he was like, do you think Feyre will ever forgive me? And then Feysand kind of made it about himself, like with, you know, well, no, Tamlin brought up like his mom and sister, like.
Yeah, will you forgive me? And and Rhys is like, I haven't heard an apology.
Yeah.
So.
And then Tamlin's just like, would it even make a difference if I did? And it's just, he is just not in a good place at all.
Dealing with depression myself, like, he is in that throw of like, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Yeah. And he just needs a friend. And so I'm hoping, because again, I don't think he meant it maliciously.
No.
Like what he did to Feyre. So I'm hoping Feyre can be that friend and can help him pull out of that depression.
I mean, we shall see, because Feyre is she's very much like, I don't want anything to do with him. I don't know if I ever want to see him again, ever, you know. She's kind of in that place right now. But yeah, so that's how things are going in Spring Court with Tam Tam.
Have we ever seen Alice again? Like, I know she went to Summer Court, but I don't think we saw her. Like, did she survive the battle in Summer Court? Because that's the other person in the Spring Court that we met and, like, you know, formed a friendship with.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know where
she went to Summer Court right when the battle broke out, and then we just never heard, you know, the status of her and her nephews after War and Ruin. So we'll see about that too, I'm sure.
Hopefully.
Yeah. We get a little bit of background. I think this is like Sarah J Maas laying groundwork. We get a little background with the Illyrians with something called the Blood Rite, right? So all of them had to go through it. I think they went through it like a century before. It's where they have 1 week to get to the peak of this Ramael mountain in like the dead of winter or whatever. And so we get a little bit of that.
That reminds me of like Spartan culture, where like they left their kids out in the wilderness and they had like a week to get back, or like they died.
Constantly tested, tossed into the wild, left to pit his wits and will against nature's fury.
And nobody gave a shit, you know?
Ooh, yeah.
Like, it reminded me a lot of that, like this right to being a warrior, which is what theirs were. They left the little boys out. And like, if you survive, then maybe you're good enough. If you don't, then... And I think they were like 10 or 12 at the time. Like, I can't imagine Michael surviving anything. Like 30 minutes outside, like really just does it for him.
I'm sunburnt.
Yes. Like, it's cold. It's 70 degrees, dude. Like, you're fine. So we see a moment between Moore and Rhys where he's like, I'm sorry for involving the Court of Nightmares without you knowing. And she's like, I get it. And then he's also worried about her because Eris and Kier are kind of working together. And she had to be in the room with both of them. And he could see her kind of shutting down. And he's like, worried about her. And she's like, I'm not afraid of them. Like, it's just, I don't like being around them. And that's where he's like, okay, well, go do something just for yourself. Go do what you want to do. And so she left.
It's almost like it's not fear that's driving her actions. It's more like her PTSD being triggered because she does have that memory of being, tossed into the ground at the border of Autumn Court. And she couldn't see anything, but she could hear like Eris's voice and other, footsteps and stuff. And Eris was very adamant about not touching her. Do not touch her under any circumstances. Do not touch her, type of thing. So I don't know. Eris is just a really intriguing character to me. I want to see more.
I can't tell if he's good because there for a little while he seemed bad when it all happened with Moore.
He seemed so bad.
Hearing. And then during the war, he seemed like he was like hinting that there was more to that story than we got. And with Sarah J Maas's writing, I fully believe that like he's going to come out of the like woodwork as being like this good guy, that there was something behind the way he treated her. But then he's with Kier and like maneuvering and trying to get some of Spring Court's like territory. And so I'm like, it's just back and forth with him for me. I'm like, are you good? Are you not? Like, what's the backstory here? I need to know more to like make an opinion of you.
He is the character that is embracing being painted the villain, right?
Mm-hmm. Much like Rhys was. I mean, I guess he wasn't embracing it, but he was painted the villain.
Uh-huh. That's very much like there's a lot of similarity between Rhysand and Eris, and I want to see more because he definitely has that morally gray intrigue all about him. We don't really hear a lot about Jurian and Queen Vasa. Like, we know that they're hanging out at Grayson's estate still as they, lead the humans and try to enforce this new, very fragile treaty that's been established to protect the lands, and that the 4 mortal queens are still on the other continent. No one knows what they're doing.
And so we are now to the point of the winter solstice. So they wake up that morning and Rhys has presents for Feyre. And she's like, but we're supposed to do presents in the evening. He's like, not your birthday presents. And so she gets to open her birthday presents, which are like some paint supplies. There was something else. I forgot what else.
Oh, it was like a sketchbook, a satchel, and a sky blue wool scarf.
Yeah, the scarf is what I forgot. And he was like, so now you won't have to borrow Amren's or something like that. She's like, oh. And so then he puts on his Illyrian, right? Is that this day or the next day? Like, he puts on his Illyrian like armor, and they go and have breakfast. And in walks Azriel and Cassian with their Illyrian armor on. And she's just like looking at him like, why are you going to need armor? And they're like, it's a tradition. And then they just like leave. And Moore comes up to talk to her, and she's like, how long are they going to be gone? Like, what's going on? And Moore's like, oh, let's go check it out. And so she winnows them, and it's the cutest little thing. They have a tradition to have a snowball fight like all day until somebody wins. And so they're like, they've built their little forts, and like they're having this snowball fight. These grown men, they've had it for like 1,000 years now. And it's like this tradition that they started when they were like actually kids. And I just thought that scene was so cute because I love traditions. I love like acting like a kid with your kids, or just like bringing that child at heart out, and it was so cute.
That snowball fight was immediately followed up by one of the most hysterical scenes in the book, because the tradition is after this intense, aggressive snowball fight, and it's so funny because you can hear Az like, ooh, you like hear them really throwing these things at each other.
And Reese is calling them names when he gets hit.
Yes. Yes, it's so cute. But after it, they just strip down bare ass naked and they go sit into a sauna together and just like hang out. And so Feyre is like,
I am totally with Feyre there, like, ooh, they're all naked?
Tara's like, am I invited?
and Reese is like, hey, if you want to come in here, like, there's room for you. He's like, I'm open to whatever you want.
And Feyre being so bad is like sending him images, you know, like visions of like what she wants to do and things. He's like, I'm getting a little excited in here. And then you just hear him get kicked out of the sauna because he's getting a little too excited.
And I love that more like tone to her, and she's like, you got him kicked out, didn't you? And I was like, maybe I did.
So inappropriate.
Yes, that was great. And then there's another moment where it's just like you see the brotherhood that they have, and like them as the kids that they should have been but weren't allowed to be, like, you know.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's why it hits me as so cute, because they were like acting like they were the kids that like they didn't get to be because they were the bastards and they were the like ones that were mistreated their whole lives. And so, yeah, I loved it.
Mm-hmm. They were deprived. So that's Winter Solstice morning, Feyre's birthday festivities. And then chapter 22 is like a little smutty scene, you know, between Reese and Feyre. And then Winter Solstice night comes after the Illyrians have had their snowball fight and their sauna time. And guests start arriving to the townhouse. And the townhouse is feeling very small these days with their inner circle expanding. And so it's one by one. Lucian shows up and there's like, oh, okay. Elaine is not having it. She just doesn't want to be in the room with him. She doesn't want to talk to him, interact with him at all. She didn't get him a present or anything, right?
But he got her a present.
He did give her a present. Do you remember what it was?
No. Oh, the gloves.
Mm-hmm.
The gloves that, like, they're magical gloves that will never, like, get barbed or, like, get cut or, you know, wear out, basically. Yeah. And Feyre made a good point that, like, I think that that's Elaine's, like, favorite part of gardening is feeling the, like getting stuck and feeling her hands in there and, like, the scars or whatever that it leaves. It makes her feel alive, kind of.
Yeah.
So she's like, you're kind of barking up the wrong tree here. But, I mean, his heart was in the right place, I guess.
Yeah, he was trying to be thoughtful about it, right? And then Elaine's just kind of like, okay, put this present over here. Do you remember what she got, Asriel?
Yes, that was hilarious. So this is, like Sandra said, Elaine is opening up and she is witty. Like she fits in with the Archeron sisters, right? Because everybody else is very like snippy, snidey, like snarky. And Elaine, we see the first little inkling that, yep, she is an Archeron, because she gets Asriel like a tonic for his headaches that everybody else causes him. Is exactly what she said. And he's like, I love it.
The book describes his laugh just like throwing his head back and just belly laughing, essentially. And it's like the cutest thing. You just want Asriel to have more of that, you know? Just being such a deprived child all his life. He deserves it.
He is much like Nesta right now. Like he's like just the like in the shadows, like watching everybody else like live their lives and like feeling like he can't, you know? Mm-hmm. So yes, you want to see him happy.
Yes. Last to arrive is Nesta, who takes everyone by surprise because Feyre is having the oh shit moment that everyone always has during like a big gift-giving holiday, right? When someone unexpected comes, it's like, did anyone give them a present? You know, did anyone give them anything? I can't remember who gave Nesta a present. She got one.
Elaine.
Was it Elaine? Yeah, of course. You know what it was?
Smutty books.
Oh yeah, Nesta's a girl after our own hearts.
Yep.
And so
living her best life over there with her smutty books and the like new man every night in her bed.
Her best life. That's funny. But then you remember that Feyre had this conversation with her at the tavern, and she was like, if you don't come, I'm not paying your rent or whatever. And so then you think, okay, is Nesta there just because she needs the money to pay for her rent, you know? And so there's that scene at the end of Solstice where, you know, Nesta's just kind of watching everyone at the end, and then Feyre is walking her out when she's ready to go home, and she accepts the money, right, for 3 months rent, which disappoints Feyre. But then what happens?
Then Cassian follows her, right? Like, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So Cassian's like, I give up. Like, I'm done. Like, she needs to talk to me, basically. And he like storms out of the house, like without saying a word to anybody else. He like picks Feyre up and moves her out of his way. And he goes after her. And he's like, what the hell? What the hell? What's going on? Why are you being like this? I'm like walking you back to your house because it's dark and it's late. And Nesta's like, I'm fine. I don't need you. And he's remembering the fact that she was willing to lay down her life for him, like to die with him. She was covering him with her body. And so I think he's feeling a little bit of a sense of like, I need to make sure she stays safe. Right. And so he just kind of like follows her, even though she says to leave her alone.
Yeah, he's like chasing her down, and he has a present for her, right? He didn't want to break this out and give it to her in front of anybody else. So he's chasing her down with this present, and he's got to be so frustrated and confused because there are definite sparks between the two. There's a lot of sexual tension, especially the last book. And he just wants her to open up to him and talk to him, and she's not having it. And what does he do with that present? Because she's like, I don't want it.
Throws it into the river. And now I really want to know what that present was. Like, it's going to like bother me. Like, there's no way I can like turn down a gift without knowing, because like the second I get home, we're like, what was that present? Like, I've got to know what he got me.
Yeah, damn it. What was it?
Like, even if I don't want it, like at least see it first, okay? So like you don't have to like think, what was it?
So their little exchange goes really well. She goes into her apartment, and then we see some of her trauma come out, right? Because she is in front of, like, she's only bundled up using blankets to stay warm. It's very cold. She doesn't want to start a fire, and she starts, you know, thinking about how, you know, no one ever mentions how the crackling of a fire, the twig snapping sounds like necks breaking and stuff. So you know that she's grappling a lot with her father's death because he died, you know, in her arms, basically. She was right there in front of him. And so she doesn't want that reminder. So it's just, I mean, you mentioned Feyre doing things, you know, out of the goodness of her heart to try and help Nesta, but Nesta is very much in a place where she is struggling to get this stuff out of her head. And she's doing it the solitude route, whereas Elaine is opening up to people, like finding her people to help her overcome that. And Nesta is very much not doing that. It's sad.
And I know I mentioned there weren't any sad parts, and there are with Nesta a little bit, but I think it's sad in the sense that she's struggling, but it's not sad in the sense that she does have people there if she wants to go to them. Like, she is choosing to do it her way. And like Sandra said, she doesn't like that Feyre was trying to push it on her. And so to me, that's not super sad, because just because you're struggling with something isn't necessarily a bad thing. As long as you know that you have people there that care. Like, she knows if she needed something, she can go to Feyre. Like she did. She needed rent money, and Feyre's like, okay, you know? And so, I don't know. To me, that's not super sad. That's human. That's being a person. And I like that Sarah J Maas built in those kinds of like interactions, because we see it with Azriel, we see it with Cassian, we see it with Moore and her PTSD. And those are human emotions that have for so long been put in the back as something bad. Like, you should never feel like that. And it's normal to feel like that. And the fact that we've made it a bad thing is what makes people feel so much worse when they go through that. And I know that as a personal like story because, I thought there was something wrong with me for feeling that way for a long time. And, I'm learning that there's nothing wrong. That's normal to feel like that. But, as long as you have people around you that can help. So I don't count that as a super sad because she does have a support system. She's just choosing not to use them right now for whatever reason. She's choosing to heal in her own way. And that's never a bad thing either. And so, yeah. But then coming out of that, we have a moment with Rhys and Feyre. And Feyre gives him her last present for Solstice that she had to share in his thoughts. And so basically, Feyre decided that she is ready to have the child that they both want. And so she sends it to him in a thought that she is ready. And we see a significant moment happen for them after they're both like, oh, are you sure? Are you sure? Like they share a lot. They have an intimate moment, very smutty, but they like, you get the sense that they like came together on a deeper level than just sexually, like and I love that right after he's like, yeah, like I was gone. Like it ruined me because like whatever was left of his own now belongs to Feyre. He's totally in.
They get their against the wall scene that they kept talking about, and it finally happens, and it's this connection of souls as they're doing it. And Feyre uses the image of the bone carver of what she saw to share with him. And it's such a beautiful moment. Yeah, it's smutty and stuff, but like it was such a good moment between the two of them. Yeah. This book, it's so important because it sets up so many things, right? Because now we have Lucien and Nesta living in their own places in town. The townhouse is feeling tiny, so
he gives her a present. Mm-hmm. And so he shows her like basically a house. And he's like, you get to build whatever house, like put in a room for you and I, an office and a paint studio and a dressing room for Moore and, like a closet for her jewels for Amryn and like like practice arena for the Illyrian babies, because that's what Feyre calls the Illyrian warriors as Illyrian babies all the time. And there was a funny scene at like I forgot where it was, but like Cassian was grumbling about something. He's like, don't let Feyre hear you because she already calls us babies enough. And so, yeah. And then he also gave her a dress. And Feyre asks him, where do you keep getting these dresses? Because they're gorgeous, right? And he's like, my mom made them all for my future, like, wife. Like, his mom, the seamstress, was just making these dresses. Like, she had a plan. She, like, made him hide the ring. She made all of these dresses. She's like, you are gonna find you a woman, and she is gonna be great. Like, his mama, like, she knew. She knew what was out there.
This book is just all the feels. It's so good. It's such a perfect setup book because it did such a great job at showing you all of the little conflict areas between, Nesta and Cassian and Lucien and Eris and Moore and like all of this stuff. But then everyone's growing and changing too. Like, getting their own house, getting potentially a baby.
And you get to see how much of Mama's boys they are. Like these big strapping, like Illyrian warriors. And Cassian is doing things because he feels bad for the way his mom was treated. And Rhys is doing things because of his mom. And it's just so cute. Like their mothers weren't in their lives for long enough, but they made a deep impact on how these boys view women and the roles that they are taking to like limit women's suffering in their areas. It's great.
I know. You're making me teary-eyed talking about this, but I'm like, it's such a feel-good book. Like,
as mothers to boys, I feel this. Like, I hope I make my son understand the struggles of being a woman sometimes and like have more compassion than you see sometimes around you.
Women do so much, and it's always like, for the most part, just behind the curtain. Like no one ever knows about it, but it's just,
yeah. I mean, even just simple things like women are predominantly the ones who buy Christmas presents for the whole family. or decide
Planning.
the Christmas presents or plan it or decorate or whatever. And it's because we want everybody else to have the time, you know? And so, yeah, I love seeing that is, and I wish that there were some better dads depicted.
Yeah.
You know, because we've got Baron, we've got Kier, like all the dads so far have been depicted horribly. I wish we had some better role models there.
Even the Archeron father, it was almost like too late.
Until the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think when we do start seeing Cassian and Rhys have children, we'll see a different side of fatherhood too. So I'm not here just to bash fathers. Like they do good things. They, you know, men also are worthy, but we just have not seen that in this series. And I mean, realistically in the world, most things you see are not great. So
it just takes a really long time to break these cycles.
Mm-hmm.
But our bad boys, they're going to be some great ones.
Yes. I cannot wait to see a little, like, I've seen some pictures of like the little boy that is supposed to be their child, you know, like on TikTok or whatever. And it is so cute with his little baby wings.
Oh, you've been peeking again.
Well, you send me things, okay? Like I can't not peek if you send them. Like I can't just be like, no, Sandra, I'm not looking at your thing. But no,
Okay,
it's
fine.
just a little picture of like what I would have already seen. Like I do not look at the ones that I can tell might be a spoiler, but like I know that she has seen a little boy, right? And like he's supposed to be their son. So it was just so cute. I want a little boy with little wings.
So with this read along, we are almost all caught up with ACOTAR. We have one more book, A Court of Silver Flames, which we will drop part 1, the first half of that book, on next Monday. And then that is it. We know that there are going to be a few more ACOTAR books after Frost and Starlight, but we don't know how many. So
I
we'll
love that she has hinted that Azriel will get either a book or his story told in some way. I cannot wait for Azriel to have his happy ending. Whoever it's with, I don't really care. Like, I want Azriel to have a happy ending. I want to see little Az babies, little shadows.
What if he doesn't want to be a parent? I don't know.
He doesn't have a choice because I want him to know. I'm now Feyre playing like, you have to do what I say.
Oh, Feyre.
No.
Feyre is something else this book. No, she meant well, but yes, she just cares a lot, right?
Mm-hmm. And she doesn't, I don't think she knows how to express her care. Because I think in the past, the only way she's had to express it is to hunt and like keep people alive, right? And I think she's growing in her feelings there too.
Yeah.
Right?
And on that note,
do not pick that picture as like the little like clip you put up with whatever you're gonna do on these, please, Sandra. Do not like pick that one, please. Okay.
Okay. I love making those things.
I think she likes just torturing me. This is Sandra's love language is torture.
Just making ridiculous little graphics and stuff. Yeah.
It's okay. I didn't do my hair or anything today, so I think all of the choices you're gonna have are not super great. So that's okay.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J Maas. Tune in next week for A Court of Silver Flames, Part 1, the first half. Follow our Instagram and you can see how the chapters break out. But if you haven't rated or reviewed us, go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen, and we would love to have you support the show that way.
And don't forget, when we hit 5,000 views, there will be a giveaway.
Yes,
we're still deciding what that is, but I have an idea.
Tera loves gift giving. This is probably why she just loved this book, because it was all about the gift giving.
Yes. And the thought that went into that. Like, I loved like showing somebody you care by like truly thinking about them.
But how much thought did Moore put into it? Because everyone was talking about how horrible Moore was at gift giving and like talking about the stuff that she's given Asriel, like ruffly bright blue shirts and stuff like that, like things he would never ever wear. And so, but like on the other hand, these people have known each other for how long? How
I
many
think she just
solstices?
likes to like. I think her love language is the torture. I feel like she would be a gift giver like you. Like, I'm going to give you something just to make you laugh at what I gave you, right? And so that's still some thought into like what would make him laugh the most if I gave it to him. Much like she told Cassian to get her the lingerie. Like, I think she just likes to like play that. It's not meant to be, it's kind of like a gag gift. I still thought about what made you laugh because she got Cassian matching underwear to her lingerie that she told him to get her. And so I don't think she intentionally I think she intentionally made these gifts funny. Right?
Yeah. I mean, after a few hundred winter solstices, you, I guess, have to get creative with the gift giving, right? Present buying already stresses me the fuck out. So having to like come up with something every single year for this many people is a nightmare, in my opinion.
Yes. So I think it was intentional. I don't think she's a bad gift giver. I think she has like reverted to the gag gifts at this point in her life. But yes, I love gift giving. I love, I don't know, acts of service.
Celebrating. Yeah. Just celebrating. And so Tera wants to do this giveaway for 5,000 listens on the podcast, and we will make it very on theme with like bookish related stuff, but podcast bookish. So we'll have fun with it. So stay tuned for that. And thank you so much for supporting the show. So until next week, we will see you then. Bye.
Bye.